time since I have recorded this video, a lot of things have happened, a lot of time has elapsed. There has been some critical information I've left out. One of them is the fact that in Tromsø, I was made aware of a visa that does not only apply to Norway, but applies to almost all of Europe. This is called the Schengen Zone. What I had learned was that I was only allowed 90 days in the zone, and if I wasn't out of this thing called the Schengen Zone, I would be at best fined and at worst expelled from ever returning to these countries. By the time I left Mandal, I was on day 80. I had 10 days to make it to Oslo and leave the country before my 90 days were up. This was obviously not ideal, but I hatched a plan to bike to Oslo, leave my bicycle in the basement of a friend's apartment, leave the country, and then come back in a couple months when I would be allowed to return. Not ideal, but what are you gonna do? I had 10 days to cover roughly 250 miles. I could do that. So I waved goodbye to Edmund and my extended family in Mandal and headed for my first city of Kristiansand, not to be confused with Kristiansund. And as if the hospitality I received in Mandal from Edmund wasn't enough, he doubled up. He set me up with his nephew named Eric, and he would later on set me up with another woman outside of Kristiansand. Edmund was even concerned with / trying to find me something to do in the span that I would not be cycling, which I thought was very sweet. My man was looking out for me, and I needed all the help I could get. Everything was collapsing. I've reviewed the video that I've taken for this time period, and it does not fit the narrative of my journals from this time. The summary of those journal entries read like this. Tire explodes outside Lillesand. Backup is the wrong tire. In the same day, I dropped my phone and it broke. The warranty ran out 10 days before. The next day, I missed the ferry because there was no ferry on Sundays. Take the long way around. Starting to feel sick. Went inside a football/soccer pub to investigate. Leave my long treasured water reservoir inside. It is closed the next day. 4 flat tires in 2 days. On September 27th, I am now fully sick. I have had a flat tire every day, and now I am kicked off my phone plan. In the same day, I have somehow lost my tent stakes. My phone screen no longer works. I cannot contact my Airbnb host because I have no internet, and also the phone screen does not work. So when I do find Wi-Fi, yada yada yada, I am trying to get to Oslo alive. In that same time frame, other things happened. Edmund set me up with his nephew, his wife, and his newborn child. They allowed a stranger they hardly knew to stay in the basement while I collected myself. It had been raining all day. At a seemingly abandoned campground in Asdal, a couple invited me inside their old Volkswagen Beetle to talk of politics, travel, and life. When I had lost my water reservoir, I received help from seemingly the entire town of Sandfjord in retrieving it. Someone eventually got hold of the owner, and he was able to open the pub for me and retrieve it. On September 27th, I was able to stay in an old stable on the property of a co-worker's of his. Charlotte wasn't home, but her mother Ingrid was. We talked about her daughter and her boyfriend renovating the side of the house, her wish to retire soon from her recycling company, and live out peacefully on the farm with her daughter. And finally, with the number of days that I was allowed in Norway dwindling down, I frantically searched for a place where I could rest my bicycle after all this time. Somewhere would be safe for the next couple of months while I would be gone. On the internet, I received an outpouring of many people who said that I could leave my bicycle with them. As I debated this, an old friend from Kristiansund reached out, who is now living in Oslo. She told me it was no big deal to leave it in the basement of her apartment for the next couple months. Things would work out. On my last day, cycling into Oslo, it was 25 miles. My journal entry reads as follows. Last day biking into Oslo. I had a nice ride for a little bit, but overall, your boy was done. Time to go. The ride wasn't bad until the end, but the 25 miles were A, endless again, B, I was hurt, C, it was beautiful once I got into the city. At some point, I just remember being like, oh shoot, I'm in the middle of Oslo. And I was, by the museums and the wharf and the mouth of the Oslo fjord. It was early, and I thought, I'm getting my book, I'm getting a coffee, and I'm going to sit by the water and chill for a bit. And I finally did for the first time in a while. It was absolutely wonderful and serene. I could finally rest for a minute. No more racing, baby. No more biking. The clock is out. That same day, I would take a train downtown to meet my friend Rose and drop off the bicycle. All went through without a hitch. I was now without a bicycle for the first time in 3 months. My journal reads as follows. Back at the train station. Just rode it downtown. No plans, no ideas, no bike, no nothing, baby. Freedom is as freedom does. Still a little sick, I went to a bar that I didn't really like and got a beer that I didn't really like. I watched a man that was dead drunk get taken care of by the security of the bar. I saw the security guard genuinely concerned about how this man was going to make it home. He didn't know this man. I watched for 30 minutes as he tried to find his friends or whoever had come to the bar with him, to no avail. After about 30 minutes, a small ragtag team of humanity got him into a taxi and told the taxi driver the deal. Somehow I took this as a metaphor, or the symbolism of Norway. The trust and faith people have in humanity. Even when things suck and you start to question it, there is a silent respect and faith, and it is here in Norway. The next day I didn't really consider the gravity of the day. I had reached out to my friend Simon from Tromsø, who was in Oslo with a coworker on business. Before I would meet up with them, I wanted to get a taste of the city. So I spent my final day in the Schengen area, walking around Oslo, looking at the museums, the parliament, the library, with the final goal being an Indian buffet. At the end of the night, I met up with Simon and his buddy Reed, and we just had a great night. The playlist at the bar was all 2010s music, but more than anything, it felt like a fitting conclusion. A good friend I'd met early on in the trip at one of the best times was there to see me off until I would return again. The next day, I would head toward the airport. The conclusion is that there is no conclusion. I am recording this on the cusp of returning. The time spent away from the bicycle has already taken place. 5 wonderful months have passed, and now it is time to return. Back on the saddle, back on the move. Not that I ever stopped. It's time to start cycling again.